All right. So thanks for. Okay, so this week at the data school, the team's been working with Jonathan McDonald to learn all about Tableau Server and all of that stuff, and had worked all week to create some custom admin views and built some things. But then yesterday happened, and we had the Brexit vote, and it looks like the UK may be leaving the EU, at least if that's what the people want. It means we can finally be rid of Pablo. So we decided this morning that we were actually going to change plans, and instead of presenting our admin views or our Tableau server views, we decided to, everybody just kind of found something they were interested in about the Brexit. So without further ado, I think first up is going to be, who's first? I can't see. Borja. Oh, wow, you're usually last. All right, so I'm going to pass control over to you, Borja. And I wasn't showing my screen anyway. So where's Borja? Are you coming up here, Borja? That would be good. You don't need to plug in or anything, though. Oh, wait, that's my screen. Yeah. So Borja needs to be presenter. I think I already know that. Okay, yeah, I did, but I undid it by accident.
It is working.
Okay, guys. So your screen is what you're presenting is up on the screen. So you need to share your.
Yeah, I did.
Share your. Try again. Go to here. Hit the share your desktop. That there. That one. Yep. It looks like you need to probably install the. Why don't we switch to who's number 2? Okay, you want to go first then?
What do I need to install?
Yeah, because his thing is messed up. So you might want to get out and get back in. So we're going to actually punt here, and Nalidi is going to go first. Make presenter. Okay. Did you get the link? You guys are better off downloading the GoToMeeting app and not going in through the web. You'll have less lag as well. If you're using the app, yeah. All right.
All right. Are we introducing ourselves?
Yes. And the mic's right to your right.
Okay. What level of introduction are we doing?
Whatever you'd like to do. You're setting the standard because you're first.
Great. I love that. Hi, I'm Nalidi, and I'm from Germany. So this vote is very personal to me. I've been in the UK for 6 years now, and I did my undergrad in Norwich and my master's here in London, and now I've been back in London after a brief break for just about 6 weeks. So I was interested in the relationship between area demographics and how that area voted. I think there's a lot of interesting things that you can find here. Unfortunately, the data is often a bit messy and it's not exactly easy to find it. So I took the data that we used for our NHS project on the levels of deprivation. The downside of that is that it's available for Scotland and Wales as well, but they're in different data sets because they're collected by different organizations. And with the limited time, there wasn't really an opportunity to merge all of them into one data set. So these scatter plots only represent the data for England. And I picked out the 4 correlations that were strongest. So each dot represents one area, and the left axis is the percentage of voters that voted Leave, So obviously, the areas that fall under the 50% mark, thus voted remain. So all the yellow dots are remain, all the blue dots are leave. The top two scatter plots are they are fairly related. So the first one relates to education, skills, and training. And basically, we can see that in areas where there's a more highly trained and educated population, more people voted to remain. And of course, having higher skills is also related to income. But we can see there's a bit weaker of a correlation in terms of income levels. So areas with higher levels of income were also more likely to vote remain. The bottom two scatter plots show a different relationship. So they are the relationship with air quality and road safety and access to housing. Now, both of those tend to be higher in rural areas, so that can sort of be taken as a proxy for rural areas. And we can see that in both of these cases, if you have better access to housing and if you have better air quality and better road safety, people were more likely to vote leave. With a little bit more time, I'd like to add in, sorry?
The air quality and road safety, so lower left is better, is that correct? I'm sorry, left on the air quality scale is better, is that right?
No, that's poor. So
okay.
These are the deprivation scores that we used, but I've flipped them all around.
Oh, I got you, okay.
To make it more sensible, because the deprivation scores were that something higher is worse.
Okay.
But obviously it's more logical for us to say right is high, and so higher income levels, for example.
So you're reading all of them the same way then?
We're reading all of them the same, that the right side is always higher and better than the left side. So yeah, on the right, more access to housing, easier access to housing. On the right, left, poor access to housing. And obviously, access to housing will be more difficult within city centres and sort of very populated areas. So we can see here, for example, Hackney would be a place with very difficult access to housing. Blackpool, Hindu, I've never heard of these places, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, with a little bit more time, I definitely like to add in the information for the other areas within the UK as well, because it is available. It just needs to sort of be put into the right shape.
This is really, really good.
Thank you.
Really good. Yeah. I love multiple scatter plots. I mean, it's really easy to compare them all at the same time. It's really, really interesting. Yeah, it's good.
I think there are probably better measures to take. There are probably better variables that you could choose.
One way to do it.
Yeah. But it was definitely a bit of a challenge to find something in the short amount of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. So Ben was asking what the R squareds are. Are you able to hover over the lines?
So quite low for air quality and road safety and access to housing. Really small for income levels, and fairly decent for education. Again, as I said, you could find better measures that are probably more, that actually say more.
Awesome. Any questions for Nalini? Good start. Yeah, well done. So, Jorge, you want to try again? Yeah. All right, that was a great start, Nalini. Jorge, make presenter.
All right. So, I'm trying to say.
Screen share. And then just switch to your Tableau.
Okay.
Up here on the screen as well. This is like what?
Hello, everyone. It's Borja here. My presentation today, I wanted to focus on a economic impact of the results of the referendum yesterday. After a few ideas, I ended up focusing on tourism. So how the results from yesterday will affect the tourism industry in the UK. The data I've been using is for 2015. With a little bit more time, I will be probably adding a few more years to see what kind of progression tourism in the UK had for the last maybe 10, 15 years. But for this presentation, the data source only relates to 2015. So I introduced the map just to see kind of at individual country level how much these countries visiting the UK in terms of millions of pounds spent, how much they influence tourism to the UK. We can see United States as a single country is the main contributor. But what I did is I grouped the EU countries in one group, single group, as you can see in the bar chart. And as a group, the EU countries represent 54.9% of the total tourism in terms of money spent in the UK. So as a group, EU countries, the main contributor to tourism in the UK. In total, in 2015, EU countries spent 27,385 million pounds. So that's quite a lot.
That's 27 billion.
Yeah. So if we want to look at individual countries within the EU, you can see again France top, and this bar chart is not a percentage. This is just the millions of pounds contributed by that country in the UK. So France, top of the list, and then followed by Germany, Spain, all the way down to Latvia. I have to say this data set deals with the top 50 countries, so it's not doesn't amount for all the countries that population visiting the UK. Is just the top 50 contributing to tourism in the UK. So that's it in terms of this year. What I want to do is I want to collect information from maybe the last 15 years, because I believe, especially with the low-cost airlines, tourism in the last 15 years, probably in the UK, has rocketed. So it will be interesting to see how last night's results will affect that. But for the moment, that's what I've done so far today.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Only things you spelled tourism wrong, just so you know.
Is that the American way or?
Sorry. Is that the Spanish way? All right, so I am actually next, so I'm going to take over. So can you guys see my screen on the? Can you see my screen on the thing? Okay. So for mine, I wanted to look at. I found this poll on yougov.uk after just quick search. I was just looking for just random Brexit polling data, and YouGov had this really interesting, at least I thought it was interesting. This was a question they asked the day before the poll, so this would have been on Wednesday the 22nd. And they asked one question, and then they break it down by the different demographics. So the question they asked was, overall, do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea to have the referendum at all? Right? So my thinking was, does this serve as a proxy for what we ended up seeing? I can't really draw a conclusion from it, but that's kind of the idea I went into with it. And, so they present the data pretty cleanly, but what I didn't like is that I have to flip through each of these little tiles at the bottom to see all of the different results. But I do like it starts with the overall, goes into the political split for the different political parties, by gender, by region, by age, and then whatever this social grade, which I didn't understand. So for mine, I didn't include social grade because I didn't know what those meant. So I just went ahead and took that out. So I wanted to just, I just copied and pasted the data into Excel and built my visualization, which, where is it here? Right here. So, so this is what I came up with. If I zoom out, okay, so that's the whole thing there. So can you see it okay on the screen? All right. So basically all I did was take all of it and lay it out in one screen, make it long form instead of having to flip through tab by tab. I just like it that way because then you can see everything in a glance. And also for everything except for the the summary at the top, they had it all in table form. So I thought it'd be nice to have it more visual. I did include the numbers, so I did basically a stacked bar chart and then a circle over what the number is. So it's kind of like a combination of a lollipop and a stacked bar. And it was a little bit tricky to try to get everything to line up really nice and neat with the zero lines, so because they all start on different scales. So that was a bit of a problem, and I used similar icons to what they did. So what I did here was basically I started with the summary at the top, which is what the globe represents, and then I always keep the responses in the same order, so it always goes yes, no, and then I guess don't know or undecided. So it starts with the overall, and then it goes into political affiliation. So obviously you can see the Conservatives and UKIP. Is that Conservative as well, or?
Right wing.
Right wing, okay.
UKIP is the party that made the referendum happen.
Okay, so you can see the two of them are very, very leaning toward wanting to vote. And from what we're hearing on the news, it sounded like those are also the people that swayed in favor of the election, or of the referendum passing. And then I break it down by gender, and it's pretty even, males and females, not really much difference there. And then if you look regionally, pretty much everybody thought it was a good idea to have the referendum, which is fine. Unfortunately, I wish I had education data in here as well. So if they had another breakdown of education levels, I think it would probably be slightly different.
You could probably get that from that social grading.
Right, but it'd be a different survey though. So, I see. I see. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. Yeah. I didn't know what that was though, so I didn't want to have to try to explain something I didn't understand. So I decided to just take it out. And then I have the regional breakdown. Again, those all look like pretty similar patterns. So I guess that's good that overall the country, no matter where you live, people generally thought it was a good idea. And then lastly was the age breakdown. And the interesting thing about the age breakdown is as people get older, they think the referendum was a better idea. But those are also the people that are going to be less impacted by leaving the EU. So again, if I had it would be really interesting to have different education levels. So that socioeconomic one is a little bit different because that combines several factors into one metric. So it would have been interesting to have in the US, it would be like high school only, some college graduate, advanced degree, something like that. Well, some college would be dropped out or something didn't finish college but went to college. And I bet you we would probably see something similar to what we're seeing at the bottom for age, although probably reversed. So the less educated, the more likely to want to leave the EU. So I decided to make it more like infographic-y instead, trying to, I'm thinking back to Caroline's class. So so that's all I have. Any feedback? I give you guys feedback all the time, so it's your chance. So. Okay.
I thought it was. Yeah. I thought it was surprising that the London results, considering the outcome of the vote, is that Scotland, London, and Northern Ireland were the three areas that voted overwhelmingly in favor of Remain.
Right.
I was just surprised.
But they also thought it was a good idea, which I would have thought. But the thing is, are they more educated? Is that why? Or I don't know if why those differences would be probably because there's.
London's always more cosmopolitan, more diverse.
Yeah. But maybe people in London thought it was a good idea because they think, yes, we can finally shut everybody up. So
this is them thinking, yes, it's a good idea before they know.
Yeah,
that's going to be leave.
Right.
And then after they know it's leave, that might change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is a pre polling or pre-voting survey. Yeah.
So taking that into fact, then it's interesting that Scotland. A lot of people in Scotland said this wish it never happened.
Yeah.
Before, so maybe they feared the worst.
Yeah, it'd be really nice if they had actually each of these demographics together. So in other words, it'd be nice if I could click on, the Scotland people, I thought it was a good idea, and see the rest of the dashboard update.
Yeah.
But they don't have the data at that level, unfortunately. Otherwise, it'd be really, really cool to answer. You can answer all kinds of questions if you had it at that. They probably do have it at that level. They just don't share it at that level.
That's for sale.
So
A conservative female from Scotland who's 40 to 69 wants you guys.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that would update the summary or something like that. Yeah, that'd be really interesting to do. I can, I just, again, given time, I just found something simple data set and just wanted to visualize it differently. So, all right, cool.
The only
Yeah.
thing that kind of bothers me is that
not for
Hold on.
they're really close to the edges.
The what?
The images.
Yeah, when you look at it on Tableau, it doesn't actually. It's the way the screenshot got.
Okay.
I'll explain.
So if I click on this here,
I've got something. How do you?
so it looks a little bit better on Tableau.
Lines in between.
Huh?
That's low.
So unexpected error. Thank you, Tableau Public.
No, it doesn't look any better on there.
Yeah, it's well. Are you talking about the one circle that's getting kind of cut off?
No, just like
Although
all of
that
it.
the icons
Okay.
don't have any breathing space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably should have added some white borders around the edges. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep. Because sometimes you look at it in if Tableau ever decides to respond again.
Just makes me nervous.
The edge. You feel like you're going to fall off the edge?
Yeah.
Come on.
We feel like the edges are moving.
Let me look at it here.
Oh yeah, see that looks great.
You mean in here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could just be that I had the black background on the.
Could be.
When
Oh,
I-
actually no, because that circle is falling off.
Yeah. So I probably should have adjusted the right-hand side of the scale. I set them all to end at 100%. So that's why it's getting cut off. Yeah. So I didn't notice that before. Is that what you mean? This right here? Oh, it's getting cut off. Yeah. But when you look at it on the image, you can see if I go into like full screen mode, it does look like these are kind of cut off here. So it would have probably been good to have a little more borders around there. But
I'm kind of surprised that any YouTubers would have said no, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I was surprised
Because
as well.
YouTubers have founded on the idea that
yeah,
We
well, it's
should-
89%. That's
we
pretty
should
high.
leave the EU
It's not high
and
enough,
we
though.
should have a vote.
Yeah.
That's like their entire point.
But that's just polling for you. It's just, there might be some guy who's not really into UKIP, but when he was asked what party did you vote for, he could have voted for UKIP, but not really believed him. It could have been a local issue.
Yeah, or there might be like some things that he agrees with UKIP, so he's generally for UKIP, but or maybe they thought, maybe it shouldn't have happened at this time.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right. So that's it.
Well, they're worried they're going to lose the vote.
So next up we have what has Ben saying here? Ben might swap the gender and location. I could do that, Adam. The reason I did it this order was because that's the order they were in the original. So that's the only reason I did it that way. Okay, so next up is Nisa. Where are you on here? Are you on? Would you join us? What's your name on the... Why can I not see you? Did you join as me?
No, she was.
Why can I not see you? Maybe you're Till. Maybe you're TIL.
Yeah.
Hey, presenter. Did it
I'm
just
doing
ask you?
some, So, hi, I'm Nisa. I'm Portuguese, that's why I'm a little bit biased.
You might want to do it in Tableau instead so you don't have to.
Okay, so let me just change this for Tableau. So, this week I was doing the timeline.
Seven.
The timeline, what happened with the referendum, and it was all through 8 hours. I named it the timeline of doom, 8 hours into a bad decision. And apologies because my mouse is. So I created. What is it? Okay, created a timeline where when you hover over it, it will give you information by the hours, what was happening here in the UK, and what was the result of it. So how many people voted out? I'm really sorry, but my mouse is a little bit
Can you
sticky.
use the trackpad on the screen?
Yeah.
Because you're viewing your shared screen again.
Yeah. It's not working.
Yeah, it's stuck.
Yeah, I'm stuck. If you just, okay, I'll do it differently. I'll do it through here. Okay. So here we can see how many people voted out. And what happens now that the referendum was in favor of leaving the EU? So some of the consequences, we don't know entirely all the consequences of it, but some of the consequences are country income. Obviously, it will decrease because over half of the Britain's trade goes to the EU, and it brings more than 400 billion a year, and that offsets the expenses that we have, or Britain has, with the EU. Then, for the British people, it will become harder to work, live, and travel, especially for the 27 European countries. Then Sun, Sea, and Vino, obviously, if we leave the EU, it will be more expensive to go abroad, and even some of the EU wine and other delicacies will become more expensive. Also, in regards to trading rules, leaving the EU, the UK won't be having much say on it. So that is a big downside. And the unemployment. The unemployment will increase, or may increase, due to the lack of membership to the Union. And then, and yes, as a conclusion, the holidays in Spain will become more expensive. So, however,
Yeah, you won't be getting home either.
yeah. So that will be more expensive, but not all is lost. There's a petition for a new referendum, which the site is actually crashed after 2 hours. We cannot go in, but if you really want to change the results of this referendum, we can always make a petition for a second referendum and rethink the situation. And that's me. Thank you.
I like how you made it almost like an opinion piece. So it's good. It feels very personal, which I kind of like. And I like how you design it to be a story as you go, kind of top to bottom of introduction and conclusion, an introduction, kind of meat of the story, and then the conclusion. So I think that's very good.
Yeah, I agree with that point on the opinion, because at the tabloids group, one of the things that was mentioned was identifying bias. And I asked a question about embracing your bias, and that's beautifully done. It's very obvious this is your opinion and this is what you think, but you've still given out the reasons and the facts and what you see as the key points for doing it. So it was nicely done.
At least the ones that more or less may imagine that will happen, because I think the consequences are.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Anybody else? No? Good job.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Mandy.
Yay!
Obviously very excited by her presentation. Let's see, Amanda, presenter.
Hello.
And feel free to ask questions on the chat. We are looking at it. So. Should have asked you for. Good idea.
Should have asked me before.
You present. Yeah, it should ask you to be the presenter. mouse into the entire screen.
Share. Okay. Hello, I'm Amanda. Oh.
And you're Dutch?
Okay. Yeah, so like some of the others in this room, this referendum was quite a personal affair, despite the fact that I couldn't vote. Because I'm Dutch and, you know, living and working in the UK, it's, it was kind of a big thing in my life. So today when we came in, I know Andy said this before, but we decided to keep the day quite topical and all made these dashboards on the EU referendum, and we wrote down a few things. And first thing on the list was the election results, so I thought I'd have a look at the election results. So what I've done is I've tried to keep this quite simple. It's just a little dashboard telling you that on the 23rd of June 2006 there was a referendum, and here's a breakdown of the results of the 33 plus million votes. So we start off with a little graph just showing you the entirety of the vote. So across the country, so we had 48% in the Remain campaign, the In, and 52% voted Leave. And then this is broken down by region. And by clicking on the region, you can then break it down into the areas and see how each individual area voted, which is quite interesting, especially this one, the Southwest, where you've got Gibraltar, where 96% of people voted in. Yeah. I just thought it was a nice little way of showing the breakdown of the results and the outcome. The little UK leaving, the little EU
So
family.
Wales was 53-47. So in Wales, almost every area voted out except for 4.
Yeah. London was actually quite interesting to look at because there were some little areas where it was quite.
There's how many? There's
Quite
only
a bit.
1, 2,
There's
3,
only
4, 5,
five.
6. 5.
Five
That voted
that
out.
voted out.
Is there anything in particular about those areas that you guys know? I don't know those areas. Is there anything about those areas that you would think would lean more that direction? Like why
Lisa
is
was saying
Havering
that
70%?
Havering's very racist,
is it?
Is it?
Are they very white?
very white supremacist.
Oh,
Okay.
And
And
how about
Yeah, so
Bexley?
offensive.
How about Bexley and Barking and Dagenham?
Yeah, that's quite.
But they have a lot of students there.
Yeah, they do actually.
income.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very low.
Yeah, I mean, they tick a lot of
Andy for the win.
they tick a lot of the typical
Didn't know about
demographic
Lambeth though.
boxes that that you
Love
see
it.
with people
Yeah.
voting out, like
You should. Yeah.
low income, UKIP supporters,
Early education.
working class, all that. So
Gotcha.
Okay.
When you're thinking about Wales, I suspect that's related to the loss of manufacturing jobs and the mining, the steel industry going and not being able to protect that working class of people thinking going out of the EU.
It's almost the opposite of London.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Yeah.
Right,
So,
that's my assumption.
Population-wise, how much is London comparative to one of the other regions in here? Just roughly off the top of the head.
I don't know, but this place has loads of places.
But like population-wise, is one of
There's
the
a
other
number of
regions
people.
the same size as London population-wise?
no,
Birmingham was the biggest.
Birmingham was the biggest single voting region,
Okay.
but then
You can't compare because this is split up into different regions. London will be the biggest.
Birmingham was only 700,000,
Oh, okay.
and so London's like 8 million. So.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was one to compare it to.
As in, compare London to East Midlands.
Right.
Or West Midlands.
Yeah, population-wise.
Population wise,
Yeah.
you're going to get what?
They did actually have
But that's
they did have a nice little column about the size of the electorate, which might have been really interesting to put in. And I did really want to sort of plot it on a map because I mean, for me, my geography sucks.
So seeing kind of that would have been really interesting.
Yeah.
But it would interesting to see how many people in London were actually eligible to vote. Actually, yeah,
That's true, because there'll be a lot of people that live in London that aren't eligible
Yeah.
to vote. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
like,
like people with loads of money that officially live in like somewhere else.
Yeah, so look at the turnout by region.
Yeah.
I suppose that's a big difference.
The turnout
yeah,
in London was
that
actually
was some
really,
wonderful
really
stuff
high,
in there, but
like 70%.
Right, but maybe if you're looking at the ratio of people, like Luigi's saying, is the ratio of people that live there versus that are eligible to vote is probably a lot lower in London than other areas.
Yeah.
So.
could we have another student? Yeah. Germans. Awful. Down Germans coming here, taking your jobs, stealing our men.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like, when did that happen? How do I get in on that action?
Challenging
I really
them
like.
all.
Yes. Sorry.
I really like your approach to this because I think most people would have just immediately gone to a map. I think this is actually quite. I think this is quite a clear sort of, like way of presenting it. I'm not sure I'm a fan of the EU. I think it would have just leaving that blank would have maybe just pulled it together a bit more because it seems a bit like it's just cluttering up. Okay. Even though I think it's fun, like cute.
I like your summary. I like your summary at the top, though. You know how you put the numbers there, number of people that voted. It kind of helps set the stage with this. Can you deselect Northwest there?
Yes.
I really like how this looks when you deselect that and how you can see. So she set this up so you can see every region. But I think this is really interesting because it does really show that almost every. It looks like clearly more than half is blue, right? So I think that's a really neat way to see everything in one view, except for Gibraltar. It totally throws everything off.
I think it's also fun that the icons that you put next to the bars to label them on the top.
Yeah, the in and the leaf, yeah. Cool.
I was saying actually, I find their logos actually just really representative of the parties as well because the staying in is like a slogan like, hey, we're in, let's do this together. Whereas the vote leave is just a command. I found that quite funny.
Yeah, very different connotations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really different vibe to it.
Yeah. That's really good. Good job.
Just a thought that when you've got the 33 million votes counter.
Yeah.
Did you have the actual individual votes for each region by chance?
Yeah, we do.
Because it would have been really cool if you could basically have that 33 million as a total in the sheet,
that would be
pop
really
that in
cool.
there, and then filter it by the region.
Yeah, so actually what I had wanted to do was along the bottom, because they do give a few good stats, which I think are really interesting. So I'd actually set up the view with that's like saying how big the electorate is and things like that. So that would also be, I guess, how many, the turnout, how many votes, the percentage of like invalid votes because of whatever reasons.
Yeah.
But it's just, it didn't really fit because it would take up so much space at the bottom that it would just cover up the rest of the bits.
Yeah.
So I had to leave something out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like how you made this so the focus of this is on the shape of the charts, right? Yes, it kind of helps direct your eye and the way you sorted everything by the vote leave, works well.
Yeah.
It's good. Really good. Nice work. Good job. Next up is Ben. I'll steal it back from me here.
Thanks.
You invited me. Yes. Oh, I think I made the wrong. Yeah, hit the entire screen. Okay. Is this yours?
Yes. So are we still doing intros? Or is that
Sure.
gone out of fashion? Okay.
Oh.
So who's online? Who are we speaking to?
Some people out on the interwebs.
Yeah.
Mostly
Fine.
information.
Okay. Well, for people who don't know me, I'm Ben. previously a marine scientist and found out about data visualization a couple of years ago, progressively got into it, started to follow a few guys on Twitter, and realized that there's quite a few opportunities in here that would be good to pursue, and saw the advert for the data school, and the rest is history. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to look at the accuracy of the opinion polls and compare sort of 3 recent elections and referendums side by side, just to get sort of a big picture view of how accurate these things are. Sorry. So at first glance, it's pretty clear that opinion polls aren't. Actually, I'll talk you through these first. So these represent, I think, what you call strip plots. So it's just essentially showing the distribution. Who's this? Christopher Weiss. Okay. So it's showing for each of these different votes, the distribution of leave versus remain, or different types of vote across all the opinion polls running up to the vote. So I've said everything within 7 days of the vote, which is represented by the circles, and the actual vote, the result of the actual vote is represented by these crosses. So the variation on this axis here is just jitter, just random variation to split the data points up on this axis so you can see what's going on a bit better. And it's pretty clear here that these opinion polls aren't very good representations of how the public actually vote, because the crosses are consistently at the extreme end of these distributions, outside, where...
Yeah, you'd expect it to be somewhere right in the middle, right?
Yeah. And this goes for the EU referendum, the Scottish referendum, and the 2 main parties for the 2015 general election. So, what's going on here? So I think there's probably a multitude of factors that are contributing to this inaccuracy. So maybe the sorts of people who take part in opinion polls aren't representative of the sort of people that actually go out and vote. Maybe it's something to do with the balance of telephone polls versus online polls. Because with online polls, you get 3 options: who you're going to vote for, or which way you're going to vote for. 2 options actually, or I don't know. With telephone polls, you don't get the I don't know option, so people are forced to make a decision. And the general consensus is to go with the status quo. So that might be what happened with the Scottish referendum, where people sort of went more conservatively, those I don't know people, the floating voters. But with the EU referendum, it suggests, if this is the case, that they've gone for the more extreme option. So, trying to think of any other reasons that these might be inaccurate. If it is determined by the I don't knows, which have actually excluded from these 2 analyses here, it suggests that those I don't knows aren't like going 50-50. They're biased in one direction or another. Another interesting thing about this data is that with the EU referendum, the polls, or the vote actually went against what the polls said. So the majority of the data points here are the opposite side, the other side of this 50-50 line to the actual vote. With the Scottish referendum, even though sort of the vote was a bit more extreme than what the polls were going to predicted, the polls went with the vote, or the vote went with the polls. So I guess that's it. Just
That's really interesting.
haven't really had much time to delve into it further, but one thing I'd like to do would be to filter by telephone and online polls to see if there's a real distinct trend there.
Well, this is good because sometimes it's really nice to create a visualization that leads to more questions and makes you want to learn more. I think this is a good example of that, about why is this behavior happening, or why are they doing polls the way they are? There's obviously an issue with the way that they're doing polling if they're getting such wild actual results from what the polls are predicting.
Yeah. I mean, you're essentially sampling the population. There's each poll is doing that in a very different way.
Right.
And it's the proportion of different types of polls that make up the poll of polls,
Right.
that determine this picture.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. I like how you pointed out how it actually, it's the Scottish referendum. Yes, the actual result was extreme, but at least it was on the same side.
Yeah.
Where the EU referendum had flipped. It almost seemed like it flipped on the last day. Because if you look at a lot of the other polls that are out there, you see the same thing. You see all the way up. It's getting closer and closer, but there's just wild switch on the last day. So definitely some issues with the polling. I think people are going to stop trusting the polling here, for one.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably part polling misrepresentation and part people not really knowing what they're going to do until the last minute.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, true. Nice work.
I really like it. I think it's quite nice that you use a lot of colors, but it doesn't look like it's too much or it's overloaded. It's still works quite well. I think because everything else is so sort of in the background. I quite like how it's just quite simple the way that you've marked it with the dots and the X's and how you explain it in the subtitle what each of them means.
Yeah, and using the X's for the actual results, that's a really good idea. I think it really makes them stand out.
Yeah, what I love it. Probably with more time, I will probably add like the confidence level based on the sample of each survey to see if, okay, this one is in this extreme, but maybe these ones with the confidence level of the sampling, you can say like, okay, this one probably is more or less accurate, while these ones are completely bad designed surveys probably.
Yeah. That's if they provide that information as well.
Yeah, you will have to need access to the sample size, but I love it.
Yeah. Was this just, what kind of data was this? Did you have just a file with all the different?
No, it's from about 5 or 6 different sources. So yeah, each election referendum is from a different source, and I've put in some supplementary information as well. So if I would have had more time, I would have pulled in information on what the polls actually meant. So whether online or telephone polls.
Yeah.
How many people were sampled, how they were sampled, I suppose. Yeah.
Good, nice work. Good job. Willie?
Anyone else stand up? Right, so I bit off more than I could chew massively, and I couldn't get the data sorted at all for what I wanted. So it's a bit of a mishmash of complete rubbish that I pulled together in literally the last 5 minutes. But what I wanted, so what I wanted to look at was, did age play a part in the EU referendum, and will people live to see the consequences of their vote? So obviously, this chart has been widely circulated. This first bar chart, basically showing the different age groups of voters and the way that they wanted to vote. This is all pre-election polls. So going on Ben's, obviously, it's not 100% accurate, as you can see from down here that the polls were predicting a Remain win, but the effect on age is still the same. And the age demographics from the actual vote are very, very similar. But the thing people were concerned about was that the older generation, you can see the 65 plus, are all voting, well, 61% of them are voting leave, compared to only 25% of the younger generation. That's actually meant to be 18 to 24. So what I wanted to try and explore was, will those older generation actually live to see the consequences of their vote and the consequences of leaving the EU? And so a couple of graphs here, neither really show what I wanted to show, because I couldn't get the DNA chart working here, but it's basically showing that the
obviously if you plug in the real data, it will show a switch from the remain and leave. So at the moment, the gap is a lot smaller there than it is here as the leave voters die off as we go on to 2020. And that's visualized in the numbers here. You can see that if this was around the other way, that there'd be an increase of 0.5% of remain voters compared to a decrease of the same amount to leave voters.
Those numbers that increase by 0.1% each year?
So these numbers, these are based on death statistics from the EU. So from each age group, how many people per 1,000 die on average a year, and then applying that to the ages of people that voted. But I mean, it was so hard getting it together, as Jamie can attest to. Getting it to actually provide a model in Tableau was not impossible. So.
Did you try using Alteryx to build your model?
No. I should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
Alteryx would have been great. Yeah.
A bit easier.
Which is short on time.
And
so we were having to rush it.
Yeah. And so this is something. The data. I even ignored all that stuff that we pulled together and just made it again. Just lots of Excel copy and pasting. So it's not perfect, and the idea is there.
It is.
The execution isn't. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say if I had more time, I'd get actual data from the referendum itself rather than polling before. So you'd see the actual switch between remain and leave, and then you could hopefully model it in Alteryx and see how long it will take for that switch to occur. So where they'd actually be of the current voting population.
You can get the population data for the last, however many years that you can get for it. To use as your
model,
your predictive analytics on as your what do they call it, like your baseline. And then apply.
Train the model.
Yeah, to train the model and apply your real data against that.
Yeah, and then apply these kind of percentages to the age groups of the model.
Sounds like a good weekend project for you.
Yeah. No, it could be. I'd like to see what it is and how long it takes. Because then the other thing was.
On Monday morning, then you can present back to us on Monday morning.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, yeah, you know what would be awesome is if you did that and you could actually spit out an exact date. Like the 15th of January, 2032.
The day where
people
Remainers.
Because actually,
the day when it switches, when there's more people that would have voted.
The interesting thing about if depending on the level of demographic data you can get and how you can match that up to the population data is you could probably look at something like certain areas probably die younger than other areas.
Yes, I did have areas as well.
All those sorts of things.
So death by area.
But you could use all that to apply to your model then.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
Then obviously I'd have to apply this percentage, so 75-25, to people that are younger. Right. So people coming up, I'd assume would be around this level anyway.
Yeah, they'll use the same.
For young people.
Yeah. And you're assuming that these people don't change their opinions as they get older then.
Exactly. So this is basically
it's an assumption you have to make into the model.
Yeah, it's a snapshot of people's ideas now, and if they carried those ideas on.
Yeah.
Well, you can also ignore the people under the age of 18 because they didn't vote. So they have no consequence.
But then they will be 18 in the future in your model.
Yeah, you also don't know how they would have voted.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You would assume.
Like what I'm saying is, you're asking what is the consequence of your vote.
Yeah.
They didn't vote, so they have no consequence of their own vote.
Exactly.
They're just living with the consequence of ours.
Yeah.
So you could just ignore that.
Well, actually,
it would be an interesting research project to see if you can figure out how to project that. Just because it would be a learning exercise. And once you figure out how to do that, you can use that as a teaching exercise in here for everybody else. How can you use a real world example of predictive analytics?
So when I'm back teaching you in a couple of weeks.
You want to see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
We'll carve out time for you to teach.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Well done. And last,
and not least,
and ironically very late today.
Wow. Not as late as Bobby yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. At least Pete turned up.
I turned up in time for pizza,
But
so
Laura
that was.
did tell us he wasn't going to turn up.
Yeah. Pete just gave us radio silence.
I was in shock. So, are we on yet?
Yes.
Okay. So, an introduction. I thought I'd take the opportunity to show you something I've been working on as a side project as an introduction, because given recent events, it's quite relevant. So I've been working on a little version of what I've been up to since graduating uni, and as you can see, I spent quite a lot of time in Europe, in Austria and Berlin. So I was definitely voting Remain, and yeah, as I've had quite a lot of benefit out of the freedom of movement in Europe. So yeah, disappointed, but I love Europe. Anyway, my viz was to do with this article I found about the financial markets. Basically, I wanted to do something about, if it catches up, I wanted to do something about the size of the movement in either the pound euro, the pound dollar, or some sort of index based on the news of this morning, compared to other crashes that happened in the past and what happened. It was actually quite hard to get hourly data based on historical crashes. So I found another article which kind of looks at the same thing that I wanted to look at.
This one today as well.
Yeah. And it talks about the 20 biggest crashes in recent history in the FTSE 100 index. And there is one big table showing all that information. So the view catches up. Down here.
This is why you use the app and not the browser for GoToMeeting.
Yeah. And yeah, there's just no visualization of it whatsoever. You go further down and they start talking about other charts, hourly data, and there was just that big table with what was probably the most interesting data of the article and the key point of the article, so they hadn't visualized it. So I went about trying to visualize that myself. Let's put this into presentation mode. So yeah, I've gone for a quite horrible Excel color palette here, not really intentional, that's just the way it turned out. So the point of their analysis was that for all of the biggest crashes, eventually the market has bounced back. It might not have been in 10 days, it might not have been in a year, but certainly by 5 years, the FTSE 100 has bounced back eventually. And it was kind of an article that was like, it was on the Telegraph Money website. It was just kind of trying to say that don't start short selling all your stock because it creates mass panic in the market. And the point is, it's a dumb thing to do because it'll probably bounce back. So the top chart on the right is basically all 20 of these biggest crashes in recent history, with a little icon on the end of the bar to show what year it happened in. You can see all of the biggest ones happened in 2008. So I think all of those up to there, 2001, and then a few 2008s again. And then Brexit is down here, just features at -4%. I think that was at midday. I think it was up to -12% initially. And it might have I think it settled around -5%. So it's still up there with the biggest crashes in recent years. I think it's 25 years. So yeah, that's just the size of the initial crash, which is from the announcement of whatever event happened, and then the first day. So it's 1 day's worth of data. And then the chart at the bottom shows how. So yeah, the bar at the top is basically this area here, the movement from the base, so nothing, to the end of the first day. And then each line represents what happened after 10 days, after 1 year, after 3 years, and after 5 years. And you can highlight each of the lines by looking at each of the crashes, and just to make it a bit clearer. I experimented with having each of these on different rows, but I thought it was quite hard to compare what happened with each one. So the dashboard action was probably the best thing in the end.
It's good how you overlay them.
So you can see them against each other. And in most cases, you can see that everything got worse after 10 days, with a few exceptions. That one's a good one. But pretty much after the first day, it's all kind of worse. There's some really big ones down there in 2008. And then after a year, there's quite a big spread, but most of them have started to improve, or the losses have been regained. And by 3 years, pretty much everything is positive, and in 5 years, absolutely everything is positive. So the point of the article was don't panic, so I titled it as such. But I think the key weakness in this is that over the next 5 years, the market environment is going to be entirely different to, well, certainly 2008 and the time period within which this article looks at. So, yeah, it might be good not to panic, but at the same time, the market is probably going to change very significantly over the coming years. There's no guarantee that this pattern that we've seen in the last 25 crashes will be true of this crash. But I thought it was interesting nonetheless. So yeah.
Nice. So the only issue, so we looked at an example just like this chart at the bottom in your first day. We looked at a line chart that had unequal intervals, but it's showing them over time. So you have to be very, very careful when you show something like this because it implies a continuous time range when it's not a continuous time range.
Right.
So, because if you were to look at 5 years, it's actually, you're giving the time between 10 days and 1 year the same amount of space as you are 1 day to 10 days.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful with that because it can give a false impression. So you'd have to redo your data to make it over the.
I did struggle with that because I did think that's what I tried to avoid at first and tried to show it in bars and like bars on each row for each different day.
The way that you could probably fix that is just to create a calculated field that says base is 0, first day is 1, 10 days is 10, 1 year is 365, 3 years is 1,000 and whatever, 1,080, whatever that is, and then 5 years is 5 times 365, and then put that number on there instead, and that way it would spread it out properly.
I just think you'd lose the size of the changes in between them though.
You would, but it would be more accurate. You would actually see the spike sooner rather than later. Right? Because, so you're actually making it look like it's half the amount of time before you see the recovery if you just look left to right. But if you hide the axis at the top, right, if you just cover that up, it looks like halfway is when the recovery is, but it's not halfway, it's actually right at the very beginning. So
wait to see it doesn't listen there.
Yeah, but that would be a way to work around that. So you just have to be careful with those sorts of things. But your labeling is good, so that helps overcome some of that. But just be careful when you do that.
That timeline Pareto thing could be useful here.
That actually would be really useful. It's a data school gym that before you guys started it.
All right. Got another one. Yesterday's one was horrible.
I should have been here this morning. You would have learned how to do it.
I actually cracked it.
Okay.
Were there any, with the other crashes, were there any events that were associated with those?
I didn't really have time to look into them.
Well, 2008 would have all been.
Yeah, 2008 were all financial. There's one 2011 and or more recent one.
Stock market, so I was just wondering if
There's a
there was anything
2015 one.
that caused those in particular. Or if they just
Yeah, I would have liked to have looked into them and fill the space underneath with a couple of the interesting ones. Just annotate what they were.
Like in that gray space.
Yeah, there's a massive space.
Yeah.
To point out the three more well-known ones.
Right.
Because there's one that's from 2002. It was the earliest one.
2001.
Oh yeah.
2001.
But that was 9/11, so that's not surprising.
It will be interesting also to see the entire timeline maybe, because you have 2002, in 5 years you recover, but almost 6 years you have all the crashes in 2008, and then you recover, but in 4 years, 5 years again, you have another crash.
So you can have the timeline from 2001 to today, and annotate on where those bars are.
So that was the data I was looking for initially. I was going to have one big chart at the top showing from 1970s to present day, point out the big crashes, and then for those days where there are big crashes, then do a chart like that at the bottom. But,
one of the other.
Well, you only had a couple hours.
I just chose that chart.
I mean, I think what you designed here is really good, and just in the time that you had. I mean, that's where sort of part of the fun of having a really small amount of time to work on this is you have to make trade-offs in your designs. And some of it you have to get something done, because you're presenting. So that's the choices you make. Is you just have to sacrifice some things for others, which is fine.
Yeah. One thing that is worth thinking about, just a couple of comments about those crashes. They were all US driven. I mean, if you go back and actually start seeing what these crashes are, finding out which of them were UK or Europe driven and which ones were externally driven. The other thought I had was your change timeline is slightly skewed by the fact that, you know, you've got 4, 5, whatever it is from 2008.
Yeah.
They're all overlapping occurrences.
Yeah.
So, but they're being traced back to the same start point. So the recoveries on them are overlapping with each other and supporting each other. So the crash from one is supporting the.
But his data set that he found treated them as separate events.
Yeah.
So there isn't, you know, it doesn't account for the interplay between them.
I see what you mean though. So you're saying that that chart makes it look like the normal thing to happen after those crashes is that shape of recovery. It's only
It's
because of
interesting.
that.
They all take about the same shape, right?
Yeah, but like Paul's saying, a lot of them are due to that 2008 one.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so there's 3 or 4 crash events associated with
Sure.
one actual event. It just took place over 4 days or whatever it was.
Yeah, like these two are only 9 days apart.
Yeah. So they're effectively still the same crash, just different announcements about that crash.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's not like it's gone back up and then back down again. It's just gone down and then down a little bit more.
Yeah. So it's like, subprime mortgages, they're all gone to shit. Day one for one crash. Lehman Brothers has gone under because of the subprime mortgages. Day one for a new crash, but they're still the same event.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just the way they classify the data.
Yeah.
So,
I'll show some pictures of how I felt at quarter to 3 as well.
Why are you up at quarter 3?
Well, I wasn't finished with it.
This morning.
As he was panicking, that's panicking about your visualization, not the actual product.
Yeah.
So, good
I was
stuff.
just more south.
All right, that's it for this week. Does anybody have any feedback on the line? I can try to unmute everybody or just comment. Yeah, I think the line is really hard to read.
Hey guys, this is Adam. Great job, and thanks for letting me peek in here and learn from you guys.
Awesome, thanks for joining, Adam. Oh, I see Fee is on as well.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Hey, so I didn't have a chance to see all of them, but the ones that I did see, I'm going to say are amazing, and you guys should really be posting these like today because there's a lot of information going around. A lot of people are feeling really confused, and they're kind of looking to data to get a sense of relief and just kind of understand what's going on. But there's also a lot of misinformation, people, not showing data in the most effective way. So I think this is a really great opportunity for you guys to put yourselves out there and say, okay, well, this is what's going on. This is how we show this information. I think, Will, I think your piece is great for that too, because it's, people are in a state of panic right now. The sense is like they just don't know what's going to happen. So I think showing people something like that can really provide them with a sense of relief.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Nye.
Cheers.
Fee, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I joined really late, but it was good to see the last few. I wish that I'd joined. Pardon?
You missed mine?
I missed yours, yeah.
Oh.
I'm disappointed. You'll have to send me the recording.
Okay. What feedback do you have?
I don't have any feedback today. I actually really liked the feedback that you gave on the last chart there about changing the timeline using days. I think that's a nice little nifty trick. But aside from that, I think they looked pretty good. And Will, I just wish that you had more time to do that stuff with Ultrix. It would be a really good idea to pop it in. I'd be interested in seeing it.
He does. He'll present it on Monday and write a blog post about
it. Look forward to it.
Let's have a nice weekend.
Awesome. He's going to give up his Frisbee golf tournament. All right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. Appreciate you dialing in and watching their presentation. So have a great weekend.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.